Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. So we're on part 4 of our story where Emma Paisley is literally running away from her husband because her husband had a little bit of a barney with her, and it was all over a dress that he felt she was being excessively extravagant in buying, especially since she couldn't actually fit into the dress, which cost over $1,000, well, $1,000 to be exact. So she's running away from her husband. She's very angry, she's very put out, and she finds out on her journey to this bar that is outside of Seattle, a couple of hours, 3 hours out of Seattle or so, and she knows that she needs to relieve herself. So she relieves herself outside a tree and has an encounter with a female Bigfoot who is very surprised to see Mrs. Paisley relieving herself in that very sequestered woodland area, and warns her about a male Bigfoot called Daygard, who's going to take great offence to her relieving herself there because it's represents some kind of a challenge, possibly doing something like that. And true enough, Daygard makes his appearance and chases Mrs. Paisley literally away from that wooded area in her car, and now she's about to go to a bar, drown her sorrows. So let's continue with our story. It took a while for Emma Paisley to compose herself, to come to terms with the idiosyncratic event that had only just transpired. It was hard to accept that she had been pursued by an irate male Bigfoot who was missing a hand, and against all the odds she had managed to get away. She dreaded to think what Daygard might have done to her, should he have caught up with her in time, and was very grateful to the female Bigfoot for giving her due warning. If she was to tell anyone her nonsensical story, she was in no doubt they would never believe it, not even for a moment. It seemed so fancifully far-fetched, and yet she knew that what had happened was rarely real, and she could feel her heart pounding wildly in her chest, and was still trembling from the aftershock. "I need a stiff drink," she told herself, "to calm down these flustered nerves of mine. I feel like a pigeon that has had a run-in with the family cat, and escaped by a mere hair's breadth." Emma's GPS sufficiently guided her to the Horse and Hound. It was 6 o'clock in the evening when she walked into the bar. It looked like a pub you would find in England, but when she learnt the landlord was formerly from London, was it any surprise that the bar was so English in every regard? She could see a scattering of cars parked outside the bar, situated next to a long line of interesting shops, all with green awnings and shiny polished glass. There was a distinctive vintage look to the street, where large fabulous hanging baskets filled with pretty summer blooms, along with colourful pot plants, lined the street. There was a hairdresser's, a bakery, a greengrocer, an esoteric shop, selling dream catchers, unusual stones and tarot cards, a bookshop selling second-hand books, a delicatessens, and an ice cream shop, along with a few other shops containing interesting eclectic-looking articles of interest. All the shops were closed, apart from the bar, of course, and an authentic-looking Italian restaurant. When Emma trotted into the bar, looking slightly dishevelled and worse for wear, with creases in her dress that clung to the back of her legs, she was greeted to a hum of lively, bustling activity. The bar was busy and clearly doing a booming trade. You could hear the cheerful chatter of people's voices, merry upbeat laughter, and the tinkle of ice in glasses, as people knocked back their drinks on this warm summer's evening. Emma noticed a tall, lanky female waitress, carrying a tray laden with delicious-looking bar food, filled with exotic, colourful concoctions that reminded you of summer holidays spent on faraway beaches with golden sands and turquoise waters. She was delivering all this to a large gathering of appreciative people in the corner of the bar that appeared to be celebrating someone's birthday, for there was much raucous cheering and clapping going on. Emma noticed people glancing at her curiously once she entered the bar, but she didn't care. They could gawk at her as much as they like. She refused to feel self-conscious. She needed a drink, and a drink fast. She slank down onto a bar stool opposite the bar, and got the undivided attention of the bar manager, who said to her, "You look like you need a drink, ma'am." "Is it that obvious?" Emma Paisley asked. "It's been quite the day, I'm afraid. You wouldn't believe half of it if I even told you about it. I've had some days in my life, but this one takes the biscuit." "I know what you mean, ma'am. I've had days myself like that. Do you want to talk about it? I'm a good listener, you know. They don't put me behind this bar for nothing," he said, giving her a wink. "Not really. There's some things I'd rather not talk about, if you know what I mean. That's why I'm here, if you must know, to drown my sorrows, and drown them I will. I want to wash away my memory of the last few hours, and if I never remember them, that will just be absolutely perfect as far as I'm concerned." "I know the feeling, ma'am, all too well. I always need a drink myself, when life gets on top of me. So what is it that you would like to drink, ma'am? I'm a keen listener, so if you want to spill your guts, be my guest. But I'm also pretty nifty when it comes to conjuring up some magnificent-looking cocktails, even if I say so myself. I'm quite a magician in that regard, with quite a reputation in these parts, I hasten to say." "Well, surprise me, then. I mean, I've noticed some of the trays going to people in this bar, with very exciting-looking drinks inside of them. So look at that table, I mean, at the far end of the bar. Those people are getting completely bladdered. Something like that would be perfect for me. Just lovely." "Well, I like to be challenged, ma'am," said the bar manager. "Keep my customers guessing with my inventive concoctions, some that I've named myself. How about I make you my favourite cocktail, but I can't tell you the ingredients. They're secret. I call it Pigs in Space because after you've drunk one or two of these lethal things, you'll be floating on air. You don't need to buy one of those excessively expensive tickets to go to space, like some of those insanely wealthy billionaires. You'll get there on your own with my lethal cocktail," he chuckled. "That sounds exactly up my street. You're talking my language. I'll have one of those with lots and lots of ice." "Thank you very much," said Emma. "Pigs in Space. Now that's a name for a cocktail I won't forget in a hurry." There was a handsome man staring at Mrs. Paisley appreciatively. He gave her a warm smile, and his kind green eyes danced with merriment. "You've been warned, ma'am. Todd is not joking when he tells you these cocktails of his are lethal. Lethal they most certainly are. You can't get away without tumbling out of this bar after a few of those. You might not even be able to stand up. Put those cocktails of hers, I'm sure she's going to have more than one, on my tab, would you, Todd? I would love to treat this lovely lady here. It seems like she needs some pampering." "Don't get any ideas," said Emma. "I'm a married woman, but if you want to spend your hard-earned money on me, I'm not going to argue. Be my guest." "Well, it's a pleasure to buy a beautiful lady like yourself a few drinks, even if you are a married woman. Why are always the best ones taken? That's what I want to know. Your husband, I hope he realizes, is a very lucky man," said the handsome stranger, smiling warmly at her. "My name is Paddy Dunblane, by the way, and you are—" "You want to know who I am? My name is Emma Paisley." "Emma Paisley. That's a nice name. It rather suits you, I think. I haven't seen you around here before, Emma. What brings the vibrant likes of you to our small, unassuming town? I assume you're not from around here, because I never forget a pretty face in a hurry. And you, yes, you I would remember." "Well, that's shrewd of you to notice. If you must know, I'm escaping that husband of mine. We had a bit of an altercation. He was being extremely unreasonable towards me. I was dreadfully upset by it all. I got into my car and drove and drove and drove, and now here I am." "You're quite the spirited woman then, Emma Paisley. I like it a lot. Sounds like you put up with no nonsense from anyone. You're my kind of spirited woman. Lots of spark in you. That man of yours needs his head examining, upsetting such a lovely fine lady like yourself. If you were my girl, I'd wrap you up in cotton wool and keep you safe forever. Good job I'm not your girl, then, said Emma with a mischievous wink. I can't stand being wrapped up in cotton wool. Things that get wrapped up in cotton wool get forgotten about, and sometimes even discarded. You, Emma Paisley, I could never forget you, said Paddy Dunblane smoothly, laying on the charm as thick as butter. There are some people you never forget, and I hasten to say, Emma Paisley, you are one of them. The moment you walked into the bar, I noticed you, as did everybody else, I'm most sure. The bar manager, called Todd, presented Emma with the most exquisite-looking cocktail that she'd ever seen in her entire life. The bottom was yellow, the middle was an aquamarine-looking green, and the top was a bright pink colour. Here we go, ma'am. Take a taste of that. Tell me what you think. Am I a good master of conjuring up cocktails or not? Both men watched Emma as she took a couple of sips of the very decadent-looking cocktail. It tasted of strawberries, pineapple and rum. They laughed at her startled reaction when she rolled her eyes in the back of her head. Goodness gracious me! That would knock out a rhino! It's hell of a strong, but I like it. I like it very much. Even so, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to walk out of this bar in a straight line after a couple of these. But then again, why not live dangerously? Life is for living, and I intend to take the bull by the horns tonight. That's the right spirit, ma'am. People come to the bar to lose themselves, and I help them do it. There's nothing like a strong drink to do that for you. And pigs in space, it's a miracle cure. You looked like you needed a stiff drink, ma'am, if you don't mind my saying so. I couldn't help thinking when you arrived in the bar that you looked like you'd had your feathers ruffled or something. She has had her feathers ruffled by her unappreciative husband, Paddy Dunblane interjected. Her husband has been giving her a very hard time. Tell me about your husband, Emma Paisley. What kind of a man gets to marry such a lovely lady like yourself? I'm very intrigued. What kind of a man is my husband? You're asking me that? Asked Emma, glugging back the alcoholic cocktail, rolling her glass forward along the table towards Todd for a refill. Now that is a very good question. You want to know what kind of a man my husband is? He's a prize cat. That's what he is. He's unreasonably angry. I bought a dress that was too small for me. He wants me to take it back to the boutique. See what I mean by being unreasonable? I told him I would lose the weight to get into that dress, but the man doesn't believe a word of it. Talk about being offensive. Why would you want to lose weight, Emma Paisley? You're absolutely perfect as you are, said Paddy Dunblane. You wouldn't want to be any thinner. Personally, I've never liked thin girls myself. Who on earth wants to cuddle a pile of bones? I couldn't think of anything worse. Me, I like a woman you can cuddle, a woman you can hold on to. Some of these skinny models you see on the catwalk, they don't look as if they've eaten a good meal in years. Before long, Emma seemed to have created quite a gathering around her. She completely lost her inhibitions. A couple of those lethal cocktails, and Emma found herself acting out the role of Hercule Poirot, and had everyone in stitches, clapping appreciatively, and ploughing her with yet more alcohol. Emma was enjoying being the centre of attention, but she was beginning to feel like a floppy rag doll, and was secretly dreaming of her comfortable bed at home. What she would give to have a quick cat nap right now. Emma did not know how she managed to escape the bar that night. It was a miracle of note. But she pulled her car keys from her purse, rattling them in her hand in front of her besotted admiring audience that were hanging on to her every word, most especially Paddy Dunblane, who was the most besotted of them all, looking up at Emma with devoted puppy dog eyes, and telling all who would listen that he'd fallen hopelessly in love with the most beautiful woman in the entire world. "Emma, oh Emma, you are so beautiful, so beautiful." The man had it bad, but Emma always had a mesmerizing effect on people, and was blindly oblivious to her magnetizing charm that unintentionally reeled you in, like the bait at the end of a fisherman's line. "I need to go and get something from my white Peugeot," she said, slurring her words. "I will be back in a jiffy, I promise you that. I just need to get something that I want to show you all. It's all about what I'm going to show you when I do another demonstration for you of murder on the Orient Express." "Don't be long, love," someone called after her. "Oh, we're going to miss you." "Shall I come with you?" asked Paddy Dunblane eagerly. "No, Paddy, you stay there. You can barely stand up straight. You're worse than me," said Emma, waving an arm. "I told you, I will be back in a mo." Even in Emma's inebriated state, she knew she needed to escape the bar, where she'd created quite an impression. It had been a challenge to reach her white Peugeot, without staggering rather awkwardly on her feet, and very nearly tumbling on the ground in a couple of near misses, as the ground she walked across appeared uneven. She knew any more of those lethal cocktails inside her, and she would be wheeled into the mortuary. She slunk gratefully into her car seat, glad to finally be there. Her trembling fingers rattled rather precariously with her key, but finally she managed to fit it into the keyhole. The engine of her car started up, and she rolled away from the bar, driving down sequestered country roads that were so dark that only the moonlight spilling generously through the sky made this tenebrific trip a whole lot less intimidating. Emma was straining to see clearly, as she drove somewhat recklessly through half-closed eyes, something she'd never have done had she been more sober. The silhouettes of the tall, lofty trees were ambiguously vague, rather like dark cardboard cutouts that menacingly framed both sides of the lonely dirt road. It was when Emma had been rattling around in her white Peugeot for over 20 minutes that she began to realize that in her bladdered state that she should not be driving at all. Her mind was whirling, and everything around her began to spin. She could feel her eyes drooping, as if it was all she could do not to fall fast asleep. What was she thinking, driving in this state when she was 2 sheets to the wind? It was amazing she hadn't driven into a tree or something. It was as if suddenly she remembered the dangers of drinking and driving, that often came with severe consequences. How this invaluable information happened to seep into her intoxicated mind, she did not know. But she knew one thing. She needed to pay prompt attention to the judicious advice that demanded her attention, that was telling her to stop driving at once. Emma obeyed, pulling over to the side of the road and parking the car. Seconds later, she had drifted off into a deep sleep at the wheel. Emma awoke to the sound of someone banging on her car window. "Ma'am! Ma'am, it's me, for God's sake! Wake up! It's me, your daughter Charlotte! Wake up!" Emma opened her eyes very slowly, to see her daughter Charlotte staring at her through the driver's side window. Emma's head was thundering. She had a booming headache from hell. She opened the car door slowly, to look up at her daughter. "What are you doing here, Charlotte?" she asked, looking perturbed, and rather confused at that. "What am I doing here, Mum? Is this a joke? I've been worried sick about you. You never turned up for your drama classes this afternoon. Your students were waiting for you. Everybody was worrying about you. Dad got a call from a frantic Helen Greensborough. She said you never arrived for your drama classes. And furthermore, you never even bothered to come home, nor did you contact anyone to tell us where you were. Dad told me all about your fight, over a pathetic dress in a boutique that you insisted on buying, even though it was far too small for you. He told me how you stormed off belligerently out of the house in quite a mood. And if that wasn't enough drama, the bar manager from the Horse and Hound called me to tell me you left your purse behind at the bar. He was worried about you because he thought you were rather inebriated. He was concerned about your welfare. Some people actually care, you know. All I can say is thank God that you had the sense to pull over to the side of the road like this. My God! You were playing Russian roulette with your life, Mum, driving drunk like this. You, of all people, should know better. You could have been involved in a fatal collision or something. Worse still, cause somebody else's death. Me and Dad could have lost you. It doesn't even bear thinking about. Oh, Mum, honestly, look at you. You're quite the sight. And you're dreadfully drunk. What the hell were you thinking? I don't know, love, all right. I guess I wasn't thinking at all. But you know your father. He just really upset me, going on and on about the size of that dress and that I spent too much money. That's no excuse, Mum. People, when they argue, they settle their differences, don't they? But no, not you. Never you. You storm out of the house like an angry windstorm, before Dad's even got a chance to talk you round and to make you see some sense. That's why I became a drama teacher, love. I love drama. You know that about me. Charlotte threw her arms lovingly around her mother. Oh, I'm so relieved you're all right, Mum. My God, you stink of alcohol. How much did you actually have to drink tonight? It sounds like you drank an entire brewery. Maybe I shouldn't even ask the question, because I don't think I'm going to like the answer. Well, I had enough, love. That's all you need to know. I drank a set of cocktails, pigs in space, guaranteed to take you to the moon. That's what the bar manager told me. Oh, Mum, listen to yourself. I thought as much. Honestly, you're incorrigible. Everybody's been worried sick about you, and you don't seem to care a jot. I feel angry with you, Mum, but relieved at the very same time. I'm afraid you're going to have to leave your white Peugeot here. We'll pick it up tomorrow, but you're coming home with me now, understood? And I'm driving. Don't worry, I'm making a note as to where you've left the white Peugeot, so we can pick it up easily. But I don't want to leave my car unattended, dear. I love my white Peugeot. Tough, Mum. You can't possibly drive in your condition, and there's no way I'm leaving you in the car tonight. You've got to come with me. The following afternoon, Emma Paisley had slept in late. Luckily it was Saturday, so she could be forgiven for taking things easy. But Emma squirmed with embarrassment as she reflected over the last 24 hours. She had awoken feeling disorientated and rather confused, with what could only be described as the quintessential hangover from hell that she wouldn't wish on her very worst enemy. She barely remembered the events of the previous day or night, and in her muddled, blurry state was struggling to distinguish between fact and fiction. She started to recall encountering a Bigfoot on her trip outside of Seattle, when she'd stopped to relieve herself behind a tree. It had been so surreal for her. She was wondering if it had all but been a dream. It was not a dream, she told herself, as the memory of having to flee from that day guard character seemed hauntingly real. She couldn't recall a time when she'd been more afraid, with her heart virtually leapfrogging through her chest, when at a brief glance through her visor mirror, a great big Herculean-sized beast had come charging towards her, and she sensed she was lucky to have escaped with her life. It seemed she had exacerbated Dayguard's anger by relieving herself on his turf, sending out the wrong kind of message. She could remember the female Bigfoot so clearly, and her kind, soulful, generous eyes. It was the female Bigfoot that had helped her escape Dayguard in the nick of time, with her prognostic warnings. My head is killing me, she thought, feeling aggrieved that she had drunk so much. She sat up with a start. The curtains of her bedroom were drawn to keep out the bright light of the afternoon sun, which had enabled her to sleep in late. She was grateful that her long-suffering husband had been so considerate. What must he think of her juvenile antics, barging off in the way she'd done to drown her sorrows in a bar, long way away from home, and wilfully abandoning all her responsibilities like a spoiled, petulant teenager. She tingled with abject shame as she realised she'd let down her drama pupils at St. Clair's by failing to turn up to rehearsals and caused them all unnecessary worry. What the hell was wrong with her? She glanced at the bedside clock and was mortified to see it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The entire Saturday had been gobbled up by her hangover. "Oh, there you are, Mum," said Charlotte, coming into the room with a concerned-looking father by her side. She had in her hand a glass of Tylenol, which she handed to her mother. "I thought you might need this, Mum, after all the drinks you had last night. I'm guessing you have a thundering headache." "You've guessed right, love," said Emma gratefully, drinking back the Tylenol. "My head is banging like a drum. I honestly don't know what possessed me to drink so much alcohol. Those pigs in space cocktails that I was given, oh my word, they were lethal. I don't know what possessed me to drive in that inebriated state. I'm just so grateful I pulled over to the side of the road and that you came to pick me up. I don't even know how you managed to find me. Honestly, I feel so ashamed, so dreadfully ashamed." "You do look as if you've been dragged through a hedge backwards, love," said her husband sympathetically. "But never again must you ever drink and drive. We cannot afford to lose you." "We wondered when Sleeping Beauty was ever going to wake up," said Charlotte. "Do you know, when I brought you home, you completely passed out on me. Dad had to drag you into the house. You were out cold, Mum. All I can say is thank God I found you last night sleeping in your car on that sequestered country road. I mean, you could still be there now. What were you thinking, Mum? Running away from Dad like that, over a silly little dress? You missed your drama rehearsals at St. Clair's. Your students were in a right state about you. Helen Greensborough most especially. She was terrified you'd been in some dreadful car accident. I was also scared that something terrible had happened to you, Mum. You don't know what you did to all of us. Dad admitted to me that the two of you had quarrelled, and that you just sauntered out of the house in a huff. It reminded me of when you ran away from your breast reduction surgery. I know, sweetheart, you don't have to tell me all this. I already know. Didn't I just say that I am so sorry, so ashamed? I just got so upset with your father. I got carried away." Reginald Paisley sat down on the bed by his wife's side. He took her hand in his and stroked it gently. "You scared us, love. You gave me quite the scare, you did. And it's all my fault. I blame myself for this. I shouldn't have made such a dogmatic fuss about that dress you purchased. I succeeded in upsetting you far too much. And you know what? It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it at all. You're far too precious. And that dress, well, it means nothing, does it? If you want to buy 100 dresses that are far too small for you, at ludicrously insane amounts of money, then be my guest. It's none of my business, and I will say no more about it. But I will say this. I'd like to remind you that we need to eat at times and pay our bills. But beyond that, you can do whatever you want with your money." "I'm sorry, Mum. Dad was right to kick up a fuss about that dress," Charlotte interjected on her father's behalf. "I take his side on this. You're exploiting the resources of the planet, buying needless stuff you're never ever going to wear, and I'm sorry, but you're not. It's grossly impractical and obscene, if you ask me." "Well, you're right, love. All this fuss over a dress. Honestly, what am I like? I'm definitely taking it back. It wasn't worth all this fuss. And your father's right. I'm never ever going to be able to fit into it. I'm delusional." "You don't need to take it back, love. As long as you're in one piece, that is all I care about. Everyone was so worried about you," said Reginald lovingly. "I'm horrified to think that you went off to a bar to drink all on your own. You do realize you could have been involved in a dreadful drink-driving accident? I would never forgive myself if anything bad were to happen to you. Or if you were locked up in jail for harming another human being. All because of a pathetic dress. It's ridiculous if you ask me. I know. I wish you wouldn't blame yourself, Reginald. This is all on me. All this is my fault. It's the way I react to things. I take things so personally at times. I'm appalled at myself most of all for drinking and driving. Please don't tell anybody what I've done. I'll never live this down. I can't believe I did this. Never, ever again. I'm just so grateful you picked me up, Charlotte. You have no idea. How on earth did you manage to find my car? It was a stroke of luck, I guess, said Charlotte. But I'm so glad you had the sense to pull over and park, Mum. You were dead to the world, out for the count you were, when I found you, that is. But you'll be glad to know I went to the bar to pick up that purse for you earlier this morning. But we're going to have to go out there again. Please tell me you will never carry so much money around with you. It's insane. $800, you've got to be kidding. I know, love. I don't normally carry cash around at all. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I met Todd, the bar manager, who served you those very strong cocktails. He was relieved to hear you were all right. I took the liberty of phoning Helen Greensborough to tell her you were fine. She practically cried with relief, Mum. Everybody was so grievously concerned about you. Don't you dare ever do this again. Believe me, love, I won't do anything of the kind. I've learnt an invaluable lesson. And if I told you what had happened to me in the last 24 hours since I marched out of this house, you wouldn't believe me anyway. You wouldn't believe a word of it. I can't even tell you what I've been through, but it's quite a story, and I don't want to repeat it again. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Mum. When you're ready, I'll take you to pick up your white Peugeot. I believe it's still parked where we left it on that country road, but I do know where to find it. I will recognize the landmark anywhere. It was 7 o'clock in the evening when Charlotte pulled down the sequestered country lane in search for her mother's white Peugeot, with her mother sitting at her side in the passenger side seat. That's strange. I can't see your car anywhere, Mum. It was definitely parked by those trees there. You see that tree with the left-hand branch broken down at the side there? That's where you parked your car. There's no way that there's another tree exactly like that. That was where your car was parked. But are you sure, love, that I parked here on this road? I mean, I was as drunk as a skunk, wasn't I? It was very dark. And when you came to pick me up, it's easy to get confused. I could have parked it anywhere around here. You could possibly be mistaken, Charlotte. I'm not mistaken, Mum. I'm certain where the car was parked. I remember distinctively. Charlotte pulled up on the corner of the road. She parked her vehicle and looked at her mother nonplussed, frowning. But I don't understand. Your vehicle was definitely parked here. I know it was. I remember that tree so clearly. It's a distinctive landmark. I still think you're mistaken, love. One of these roads looks pretty much like another, if you ask me. I'm not mistaken, said Charlotte, looking bewildered. Charlotte got out of her car, and Emma got out after her daughter. Charlotte began examining mud tracks in the middle of the road. Your car was definitely parked here, Mum. See these tracks here? I know they belong to your car. You were definitely here last night. This road is very muddy from the rain they recently had here. Oh, my goodness, Mum, look over there. Something on the edge of the road. It looks like a crumpled piece of metal. Mum, you're just not going to believe this. Oh, my goodness gracious me. I can't believe it. What is it, dear? The lump of crushed metal over there. It's what's left of your car. What the hell happened to it? But that can't be my car, love, gasped Emma. But, Mum, it is. There's nothing left of your car. It looks like it's been in the knacker's yard and been crushed. All I can say say, Mum, is thank God you weren't in it. Thank God I found you last night when I did. I don't know what could have happened to your car. How does this happen to a car in the middle of nowhere? That it gets crushed like this? This is just the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was thinking much the same, Charlotte. It is very bizarre. I can't imagine what could have happened here. Oh, Mum, you're not going to believe this. Look at this, Mum. This is insane. Everything is getting weird around here. Look at this footprint. Who has feet this size? They're ginormous. These footprints are right next to your crumpled car. What the hell is going on here, Mum? Emma didn't answer her daughter. She froze to the spot. She recognized this place. This was where she had relieved herself, on the way to the bar. Then she saw him. She froze with terror, as standing there staring at them through the trees was a powerful male Bigfoot, and Emma could feel his anger as he stood there with legs outstretched and his fists beating the air furiously. Charlotte! Charlotte! I want you to go to the car right now. Get in now. Don't ask questions, just get there now. Straight away. Do you understand? Ma'am, what are you talking about? You're scaring me. Get into the car. Do you understand what I'm saying? Get into the car right now. Charlotte could see her mother had grown pale. She could hear the fear in her mother's voice. So she obeyed at once and dashed to the car, with her mother following close behind. Both dived onto their seats. Let's get out of here now, love. Now put your foot on the accelerator as fast as you can and don't look back. Do you hear me? Don't look back. Oh, my God, said Charlotte, glancing through the visor mirror. There's a male Bigfoot behind us. He's running after us, Mum. Oh, Mum, he's waving his fists at us. He seems to be angry. Go, love. Put your foot down and get out of here fast. Charlotte, with a pounding heart, needed no further encouragement. She literally put her foot down on the accelerator, and they were out of there as fast as they could go. When the Bigfoot was all but a speck on the horizon, and they knew that they were out of harm's way, Charlotte immediately parked her car on the side of a road. Mum! Oh, Mum! My heart is pounding in my chest. I'm breathing so heavily. Did you see what I saw? Did you see a male Bigfoot running behind us? I've never been so frightened in all my life, Mum. I could feel his rage. I was so sure he was going to kill us. His name is Daygard. He's very dangerous. He's missing a hand. It was blown off by a hunter, I believe. He was after me because, believe it or not, I relieved myself on his turf, on a tree, exactly where I'd parked, believe it or not. And then, when I returned last night, I parked in a very much exactly the same spot. I mean, what were the chances of that happening, love? Daygard saw me as challenging him. I know this because a female Bigfoot I encountered when I was relieving myself warned me to get the hell away from him. And then I returned. Returned to the same spot. I went straight back to the lion's den, would you believe it? Honestly, what am I like? You think Daygard crumpled your car, Mum? He must be hell of a strong. Oh, I don't think it, love. I know it. He did that to my car. There is no doubt about it in my mind. My God, Mum, I think you'll think twice about running away from Dad again. If this is the kind of pickle you end up in, believe me, love, it's not going to happen again. 2 weeks later, everyone clapped and applauded when the show Murder on the Orient Express came to a close. And as usual, Helen Greensboro was the star of the show. But no one could deny that with a drama teacher as good as Emma Paisley, how could anything go wrong? Unless, of course, you're taking a trip with her down a sequestered country road and you decide to relieve yourself. So there you are. That's my story. Do you know that is just an amazing story? I loved every minute of it. It was absolutely fantastic. And Emma Paisley, what a character. What an absolute character. Imagine having a drama teacher like that. Fantastic. But talk about relieving yourself in the wrong spot and then ending up there again later at night in a drunken state. She was very lucky not to be in that car, because the Bigfoot day guard clearly crumpled it up. So what a lovely story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.